It's Friday again. One more, come on up. And I have to apologize. I do not have a handsome man with me to be interviewed because we've just been rushing madly here and there, finishing up my big picture book for Bruno Munder. But I promise, next one there will be a handsome guy there. I'm going to do it. I've already scheduled him, so we're going to do it. I thought today I would, I'm working on like 5 books this year, and one I'm going to do my autobiography. My PR man thinks I should do it. I don't know. I think maybe it's a bit much to think about doing an autobiography, but I'm going to do it. And I have the title. It's going to be called, Is It Hot in Here or Is It Just Me? Anyway, I'm going to try to do something that will combine a number of things. I don't know. I'm very interested about it because I've just been reading a big book on Diana Vreeland, and another big one on Gary Cooper. And I'm very kind of concerned and interested in how people leave a lot out of their autobiography that's really very important in their lives, and they just skip right over it. Before I do that though, I want to talk to you. I just finished Ghostly Ruins. This is the greatest book. It's a book about all these ruined houses and industrial plants and boatyards. It's a fantastic boatyard. This guy bought all these boats after World War II and just took the things he wanted off. There's a whole bay in Staten Island where it's just full of these half-sunken ships. It's incredible. I've never seen anything like it. This is a book called Ghostly Ruins. It's by Harry Skrdla. Really, if you could get Amazon, this is like a really great book. And then I just finished Penelope Lively's How It All Began. I love this book. Penelope Lively is an English author. She's one of my favorites, and this is the first time I've ever read this. The central figure is a lady, probably my age, who gets mugged in the streets of London and knocked down, and they have to rescue her, and she has to go and stay with her daughter for a while because they broke her hip. And it's interesting. It's the first time I've ever read a novel where she actually talks about what it's like to be in your 80s. It's interesting. It's very interesting. I want to, because I always think I'm going out into this desert no one's ever reported back. I'm 82. And like, somebody's got to know what it's like out there, because it's not like what you might think by any means. Anyway, I just wanted to say I read this thing on Diana Vreeland. Very interesting. I mean, I had friends who worked with her at the Costume Institute. They said she was not a nice person at all in any way. And she says in here, that her husband was the only man she ever loved, blah, blah. What she doesn't say is they were separated for decades. He lived in Toronto, she lived in New York. She never saw him. She certainly didn't sleep with him. He supposedly was in Toronto with his lover, was very vague as to whether that lover was a man or a woman. There's all this stuff. And then in retrospect, they don't want to talk about it. It's all very, that's not going to be in my autobiography. I was going to tell you everything. And another thing is Gary Cooper. This is a really good book for the photographs. They have all these photographs of his entire life. And he was, Gary Cooper, I don't even know who Gary Cooper is, but he was a very famous movie star. Diana Vreeland was the editor of Harper's Bazaar and Vogue and the Costume Institute at the Metropolitan Museum. She was very famous. So if you don't know who she is, you ought to find out about her, because she really did create the look that everybody, for half a century, people dressed the way she told them to dress. And he was kind of like the top #1 movie star for years. And somebody's, and I was talking to my assistant today, and I said, and he married his wife in 1933. They were never divorced. They stayed together forever. They were, they never, I don't know, they lived like 40, 50, 60 years together. That was just very unusual for Hollywood. But what they don't mention here is he was a cowboy extra. And he was in a movie with Clara Bow, who was a big silent screen star. Clara grabbed him. They had an affair. She made him the co-star of her next movie, and he started going up in the movies. Then he left Clara when the talkies came, because Lupe Velez, the Mexican Spitfire, found him, and they did talkies together, and he became a real star. And then, like 1930, he's a star. And he's doing movies with Marlene Dietrich and everything, and there's a lady named the Countess de Frasso. She was an American there, married to a Count de Frasso, and she grabbed on him. She was his mistress, and she took him to Europe. She taught him how to dress, how to eat, how to do everything. But he was English. He was actually born in this country, but his parents were English, and they were in Colorado, and he and his brother went to school in England. And so when he came out of school, he was a teenager. So it's very interesting that he really was an English guy, posing as the great American guy. And then after the Countess de Tallulah Bankhead said, Because Tallulah Bankhead said she was a big star on the London stage, and she came back to this country in maybe 1932 or so. And they said, well, what are you doing in this country? You're a star in England. She said, I'm going to Hollywood and fuck that divine Gary Cooper. Which she did, but she said later, she said, oh, you know, because he was with the Countess de Frasso, and she said, I saw Gary Cooper and he looked worn to a Frasso. But what they don't tell you, they never mention any of that, you know, how you get going in Hollywood. And when he was much older, he did a movie with Patricia O'Neill, who is an actress who just died very recently. And he had a big affair. It was the only time he had a big affair outside of his marriage, and he was going to leave his wife for Patricia O'Neill. And Patricia O'Neill, I think, is the one who said, you know, no, you can't. Been married to her for about 4 decades. You really can't do that. And the last thing before I leave you is Carol Lombard, who was Clark Gable's wife, said she didn't want to do a movie with Gary Cooper because she thought he was gay. So, I don't know. Who knows what was really going on in people's lives? But when you read my autobiography, you're going to know everything. So, see you next week. Ciao.